Okay, guys, so this has been on my mind for a while, and I'm sorry I haven't had a chance to make a video about it, but rest assured, if I think something, I will make a video about it, and even after the fact, it can still be poignant. And this, to me, was poignant. Right after Iowa, right after none of the polls even hinted that Pete Buttigieg would have been second place, uh, he kind of makes a victory speech. I mean, he doesn't say we won necessarily that I remember. He just says that we're victorious, and he made it kind of prematurely with only 62% of the precincts reporting, but it was just kind of odd. And then the next morning, he comes out, and I'm not sure how many people saw this on their news station, but he comes out of this building, looks like a coffee shop, but who knows, could be a government building, and the reporters just ask him, "How do you feel about Iowa? You said victorious last night. How do you feel?" And he just doesn't even look like himself. Not only does he have this weird, creepy, static smile on his face, but he's walking like in a way that I've never seen him. He's just loping back and forth. Just walking, loping. Just that smile, so weird. So I thought it was really weird, and it just didn't seem like him. It almost seemed like something out of a movie. And I watched the Jimmy Dore commentary on it, and he was like, "Oh my God, this seems like a robot. He just seems like a robot. And if he was not guilty, if he wasn't guilty and he wasn't colluding with somebody, then he wouldn't be walking the way he is. He wouldn't be evading their questions." Because, like, how much does it take to just be like, "Oh, thank you, I won, I feel good." I mean, he's already said victorious. So it was just really interesting. I do though. I think it was weird because who could have predicted it? I mean, they have like microphones in his face and everything, and he's just looking forward, loping back and forth. But what was really strange to me is that I actually watched two of the ground precincts, and I watched those live. And the first choice was Bernie Sanders, and the second choice was Elizabeth Warren. And that's kind of how things were polling. Now, I wonder if a lot of people do like Buttigieg and do truly identify with him because he is a younger candidate, and maybe it's just a missed demographic that they didn't get by phone polling, because a lot of millennials do not answer their phones, which I completely understand. And maybe it was more off for Buttigieg than it was for Bernie, just because maybe there are more. Well, I think Bernie just has more support in general, but that's the only thing I can think. Now, of course, I've heard of all kinds of funny business coming out of Iowa. I don't want to get into that. I think some liberal channels kind of fudge it a little bit, like in other words, they'll tell you one thing but not tell you the whole thing of it, like not tell you the whole story. And of course, there's no way to fully know the whole story, at least not right off the bat. But they did talk about Pete investing in Shadow, or giving money to Shadow, along with Elizabeth Warren and Biden. And that does sound fishy at first. And Shadow, of course, is the company who set up the app that helped with this caucus. But what they didn't say is like, oh, Shadow also helps with campaign texting. And Pete, of course, gave the most money. But it still seems like a conflict of interest. I don't feel like any for-profit business or anything should be involved in these caucuses. And I just, my hope is that in the future, and I don't know if this could ever happen, but in the future, they could just take election money from a general fund. If enough people get enough names on in a petition, they could just take it from that. Because all this financing and independent business, just getting involved in politics is really, really not prudent, I don't think. But in any case, it was just really weird because based on the general polls, this was very, very unexpected. It's almost like Pete came out of nowhere. But that said, I mean, deep down, I do think that there might have been some funny business involved. Of course, I can't say, I wasn't there. And he just, again, did not look like himself. And there's no reason that he should not have been able to answer the reporters' questions. But what it really reminded me of is this in the Manchurian Candidate, when Liev Schreiber is just talking regularly to somebody in his hotel room, and then somebody says a keyword, and they go back and they make an incision injection in his brain, and all of a sudden this weird zombie-like smile comes across his face. I'm not saying Pete's Manchurian Candidate dated, but it does look that way. And of course, as soon as he started taking money from major corporations and billionaires, he started kind of changing his tune about Medicare for all, and that he started using that weasel language. Well, Medicare for all if you want it, but keep your private insurance if you want it, which is just stupid. I mean, that's just a weasel way of just saying, oh, well, the government's not going to totally fund Medicare, and you can keep your insurance company if you want, because we're not going to totally pay for it, and we're not going to get the insurance companies off your back. So we're going to let you have a choice. We're going to let you have a choice of insurance companies, which is not what we want to do. What we want to do is get everyone under the same umbrella of medical care. That means the rich people get exactly the same care as the poor people. We don't want insurance companies tiering things. In other words, if you pay this much, this is the quality of medical care you'll get. If you pay this much, this is the quality of medical care you'll get. We want to steer away from that. What we want to do is give everyone an equal opportunity across the board. Now, of course, rich people will be able to get some things more than poor people, like if they want to fly to some remote city to see a specialist, sure. But if we all were under the same and equal umbrella of medical care, then I think it would be a lot more fair, and I think the politicians would care a lot more about maintaining medical care for all. Medicare for all, because it would be their Medicare as well. And that's just my 2 cents worth. And another thing I hate about these elections, up to and including the Electoral College, is just with all this delegate confusion and all these districting and redistricting and, well, possible gerrymandering, but I'm not even so concerned about the gerrymandering, but although it could be a factor, because gerrymandering is notorious for splitting districts into ones that'll get the most highly Republican or conservative votes. But it's just like it all seems so complicated. Like, no videos that I watch on YouTube did I understand the whole caucusing thing any better. I just thought it was they all went to a gym, and that's where I saw the first 2, well, my first and only 2 ground caucuses. They went into a gym, they were dividing up in crowds, and then eventually Bernie won, and Bernie and Warren had the top 2. Of course, that's only like 2 districts, but even still. But it just bugs me because I feel like it's the same with tax laws. It's the same with the Electoral College. It's the same with this. The confusion of it all just makes it easier for people to cheat if they want. Because it's like the American people are not going to figure it out. And you have to go to school to understand the tax laws. So if they would just count the popular vote, then there would be far less room for contention. And it just kind of pisses me off because I just feel like it's just kind of trying to mess with the American people and just have everyone be so confused that there's no way that they can prove that there was any kind of funny business. All right, peace out and have a good trip.